Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and in honor of the Halloween season, I thought I would do something different, something spooky. It's been some time since I've covered a comic, and with so many of you guys recommending this graphic novel to me in the comments of my Event Horizon video a couple of weeks back, I thought it would be fun to break it down. Over 2 decades after Event Horizon first etched its nightmarish legacy into our minds, a new chapter unfolds, one that dares to chart the doomed vessel's first voyage into hell. Event Horizon Dark Descent is an official prequel comic series that expands on the cosmic terror and psychological decay glimpsed in the cult classic 1997 film. Set before the events of the movie, this miniseries finally tells the story of the original crew that boarded the Event Horizon and never came back. I have a massive video covering the film, links in the description, but for the uninitiated, in the year 2047, the rescue vessel, Lewis and Clark, was dispatched to investigate the sudden reappearance of the Event Horizon, a prototype starship that vanished without a trace 7 years earlier during its maiden voyage to Proxima Centauri. The ship was equipped with an experimental gravity drive designed to fold space and allow for instantaneous faster-than-light travel, but instead of jumping through space, the Event Horizon accidentally tore a hole in reality. It becomes clear that the Event Horizon has returned, alive, imbued with a malevolent will. The gravity drive didn't just open a rift in space, it opened a gateway into a dimension of chaos, torment, and endless suffering. This is crucial for understanding Dark Descent, which rewinds the clock and explores what happened during the first doomed expedition. It's the story of the original crew, of Captain Kilpack and his team, and how the Event Horizon crossed a threshold into an unimaginable realm. And this time we're going all the way to the source of the madness. Helmed by writer Christian Ward, who gave us Batman City of Madness and Invisible Kingdom, and brought to vivid life by horror and sci-fi illustrator Tristan Jones. This 4-issue series dives deep into themes of madness, torment, and the corruption of the soul. Combining haunting visuals with theological horror and interdimensional dread, Dark Descent attempts to deepen the mythos and give us our first full look at what really happened before the ship reappeared near Neptune 7 years later. With 2 issues already released and 2 more on the horizon, this is part 1 of our breakdown of Event Horizon Dark Descent. The story picks up 10 months before the Event Horizon's jump, where Dr. Weir is attending the funeral of his wife Claire and reminiscing about how he believed his obsession with getting the ship ready led to her death. He tells us that he'd never spent that much time thinking of heaven, he was always a man of science, and now he finds himself consumed by hell. Hell isn't below us. It's not some fiery pit, it's in the void, in the cold empty spaces of our lives. This opening immediately grounds the story in tragedy and obsession, establishing the psychological fracture at the heart of Dr. Weir's character. His fixation on the Event Horizon's gravity drive is no longer just a scientific pursuit, it's becoming a coping mechanism, a way to drown out the guilt and grief festering beneath the surface. By linking the notion of hell not to a place below, but to the void, a cold cosmic emptiness. The narrative foreshadows the kind of horror the ship embodies, one that is psychological as much as supernatural. Weir is approached by General Anderson, who's in charge of the expedition at New Horizon, and tells him that he's deeply sorry about his loss and that Claire was quite the woman. While the doctor is essential to getting the experimental gravity drive ready, Anderson explains that the company wants him to take all the time he needs to grieve before returning. That's when William, rather surprisingly, tells him there's no need as he'll be back on Monday. The gravity drive will remain completely on schedule, as without Claire he wants to keep his mind occupied. He even reveals that he thinks he solved one of the major problems they've been having with the machine, and more worryingly, that the solution came to him in a dream, one of many strange dreams he's been having. This is when we see a bloody image of Claire with her eyes missing, telling William to come find her. But what he doesn't realize is that it's not the ghost of his wife whispering to him, but a demonic figure that is yet to be revealed. Anderson's brief but telling interaction with Weir underscores just how essential he is to the mission. Most unsettling, however, is the dream sequence that serves as the first tangible intrusion of a malevolent force. This isn't a man haunted by memory, it's the void itself reaching out, exploiting his grief as a conduit, planting the first seeds of what will become his complete psychological unraveling. This quietly sets the tone for the series, personal trauma becoming the perfect gateway for cosmic evil. We then fast forward a few weeks to the day before the jump, and we're introduced to 2 new characters aboard the Event Horizon, Dr. Jennifer Kwan and Niyat Atwell. Dr. Kwon is an American quantum physicist who, much like Dr. Weir, recently lost her twin sister and now feels like Earth is alien to her, while Atwell is an Indian communication officer. We're not given specifics, but it's implied that Jennifer's sister was ill and in need of an organ transplant, likely a kidney or partial liver. Jennifer and her sis were not on speaking terms due to an argument that went on for too long, and she's angry that she didn't make amends and be there for her when she needed her most. What we're going to find out is that almost every person aboard the vessel, with the exception of Niyat, is running away from something, which will be of great importance when they arrive where they don't mean to. Niyat, of course, being a good friend, is just trying to get her mind off that guilt and reminds Jennifer that she's here now because of her love for quantum physics, and that's what she should be focusing on. Called to the bridge by Captain Kilpack, Jennifer gives the crew a breakdown of what they're about to do. They are approaching their jump point, at which time the gravity drive will be engaged and will fold space-time before creating a singularity, in essence punching a hole for the event horizon to pass through. This is going to reduce what would normally be a 1,000-year journey to an instantaneous jump from point A to B. She'll also be tracking and recording the quantum effects of that on the ship, but also on all of them as well. We then get a breakdown of the main crew. Lieutenant Sarah Sang, who hails from China and is fleeing an abusive partner. Dr. Peter Ejel from Nigeria, the ship's physician, who, unbeknownst to everyone else, is ill with cancer. Peter explains that everyone is healthy coming out of cryosleep, but while their bodies might be fine, their minds are far from ready for this venture. We've got Captain John Kilpack from the UK, a devout Christian whose heart is described as lying heavy with his late father's disappointment. Yusuf Quinn hails from Turkey and is the chief engineer on board the Event Horizon, who likes to fix things and gets frustrated that those same skills don't apply to people. And finally, we have Devlin Connor, an Aussie working as the ship's navigator, but is also harboring a dark secret. Captain Kilpack tells the crew that together they are stronger, and asks how the ship is doing. He's told by Quinn that she's running beautifully, and that they're on course by Devlin. Kilpack then explains that they are hours away from their jump point, and that he will need them to complete last checks and get a good sleep, as tomorrow will be a big day. Finally, Nia reports that they just received a comms package, and that tomorrow at 7 she'll be manning the comms station. So if anybody wants to receive or send a note home, it might be their last chance. This section layers both character backstory and thematic groundwork, emphasizing that the Event Horizon isn't merely a starship, it's a vessel of broken people fleeing their pasts. Jennifer's unresolved grief mirrors Weir's earlier torment, establishing guilt and personal loss as shared emotional threads that will be exploited later by the darkness they encounter. Nia, as the one relatively unburdened crew member, serves as an emotional anchor, a reminder of normalcy and empathy, which makes her presence even more important in contrast to the other's internal voids. The briefing cleverly functions as both exposition and foreshadowing. The description of folding space-time and creating a singularity captures the ambition and danger of the mission, the sense that humanity is not merely crossing space, but trespassing into realms it was never meant to enter. Each crew member's introduction isn't just flavor. Their private scars form a kind of psychological fault line. Sarah's trauma, Peter's terminal illness, Kilpack's religious feelings of inadequacy, Yusuf's frustration with people, Devlin's secret, and Jennifer's mourning. All of these will become pressure points once the Event Horizon crosses a threshold. It's a classic horror setup, a crew of emotionally fractured individuals stepping into the unknown. 4 hours to jump. The gravity drive is 70% online when Nia receives an alarming communication from Earth regarding Devlin. Before she has a chance to tell anybody, Devlin walks in behind her, having suspected this might happen. We won't find out exactly what he did until later, but he tells Nia that it was an accident. Judging by her response and her mention of a kid dying and the Victorian police calling for his arrest, we know it's very serious. But before Nia can follow protocol and alert the captain, Devlin grabs her arm and stops her from going. At the same time, over in the command center, Captain Kilpack jumps on comms and says good morning to everyone. He tells them that they, the crew of the Event Horizon, are pilgrims of the unknown, about to take their first step, surveying the circling of stars, visions of this kind purging away the dross of their earthbound life. They are doing this together, and every one of them is important. But it seems as though the memo isn't going through to Devlin, who, in an effort to restrain Nia, causes her to fall and hit her head, killing her just 2 hours before their scheduled jump. This is the point where the narrative tension pivots from quiet unease to outright dread. Nia's confrontation with Devlin is significant because it introduces the first human death aboard the event horizon before the ship even jumps, forewarning that the true horror will be as much internal as external. Devlin's past crime adds a layer of moral rot beneath the crew's heroic facade. It underscores a recurring motif in Event Horizon. Everyone carries darkness with them, and some of that darkness is already loose before the jump. Meanwhile, Kilpack's speech over comms plays almost like a tragic counterpoint, a captain invoking unity, discovery, and purpose, while in another room, his crew is fracturing in silence. With the gravity drive now 80% online in just an hour to jump, Captain Kilpack gets a call from the space station orbiting Earth. General Anderson lets him know that systems are green and that they're cleared for launch in 60 minutes. Kilpack explains the gravity drive is humming to life and requests the General give his regard to Dr. Weir for his fine work. Anderson obliges and tells Weir, who's standing beside him, that they're at the precipice of a new age of man, and that Claire would be proud. But William is not so sure. Speaking directly to her in his mind, he says that the irony isn't lost on him. He's seen more of her after she died than he did while she was alive. He apologizes how his work took him away from her when she needed him. He was so consumed, so frustrated he couldn't solve the myriad problems they were dealing with in relation to the gravity drive. He tells her that he's sorry he didn't notice she was ill. As a demonic figure is seen lurching towards Claire, Weir continues that every night since she left, she's brought him a puzzle piece. With the gravity drive finally fully online, the event horizon makes a jump and disappears from our universe. Weir's monologue deepens the psychological throughline. His grief and guilt over Claire, combined with the hallucination of her delivering puzzle pieces, shows how the ship's gravitational experiment is already bleeding into the minds of those tied to it. The demonic figure creeping closer to Claire signals not just the presence of something waiting on the other side of the jump, but that it may already have a tether to this world through Weir's grief. The jump isn't just a scientific leap into the unknown, it's a crossing into something that has already started claiming them. And this is where things start to get bonkers. Devlin tells us that his old man was a Brit, and despite growing up in Australia, he always wore a dark cloud carried from home. It's revealed that he used to fight Devlin and his brother, teaching them to duck and dive, and Devlin wondered if the point was to hurt them, or if his father actually wanted them to learn how to dodge his attacks. Either way, the message of ducking and diving was definitely acquired, and that is all he's been doing throughout his life. In fact, it is what he's doing now, carrying Nia's dead body and hiding it somewhere on the ship. He was a delinquent, always getting himself into trouble and navigating a way out of it. This is when we see the incident that culminated with his confrontation with Nia. While driving his car, he received a message on his phone regarding the Horizon project, informing him that they were approved for launch and that he was to report for duty. This is where he accidentally hit a child with his car and killed him. He tells his father that he taught him how to move, to always keep his eye on where he was going, to keep his eye on the road, but now he thinks he's hit the end of the road, and he's not sure if he can get out of this one. This marks a critical turning point where personal demons and external horror begin to intertwine. Devlin's backstory is more than exposition. It's a lens through which we see how his upbringing shaped a man who survives through avoidance and evasion rather than confrontation. His duck and dive philosophy, born out of abuse and fear, now manifests grotesquely as he hides Nia's corpse, a desperate reflex rather than a rational decision. This isn't just guilt, it's instinctual damage control from a man who spent his entire life running away from consequences. His confession to his father, real or imagined, reads like a grim prelude to damnation. As he tells his father that he's pretty sure he's in hell and that he'll wait for his dad to turn up, we see that the event horizon has arrived in what can only be described as hell, with monstrous abominations surrounding the vessel on all sides. Jennifer says the obvious, that this isn't right, and Captain Kilpack assures her that they are in agreement, but now is not the time for panic. In addition to wondering where they are, he's curious as to where their communication and navigation officers are, with the rest of the crew unaware of what transpired between Devlin and Nia. Sarah also chimes in that they have an even bigger problem, with the Yusuf reporting the gravity drive is shut down, meaning they can't get out of here. Worse still, all readings indicate that it's cold, as though it was never on to begin with, and so Kilpack orders Jennifer to locate Devlin and Nia, after telling Sarah and Peter to check on the rest of the crew and see how they're doing. The ship's arrival in a hellish dimension externalizes everything the characters have been carrying internally. The monstrous abominations are not just physical threats, they echo the idea that they've crossed into a space that feeds on human failings. The dead silence of the comms and navigation, paired with the impossible cold of a deactivated drive, sets the stage for their entrapment. What was once a mission defined by science and ambition is now a waking nightmare where their inner fractures are mirrored by the abyss outside. This is where we see that there are a few other crew members we haven't already met and who are clearly freaking out. Ruben is trying to help Chambers, who's having an episode, saying that he can't stop seeing it and that it won't go away. She begs Yusuf to help, but the guy is clearly out of his depth and he departs, telling them to call Peter as he's a doctor. Ruben chews him out, exclaiming that if he can't handle the unexpected, what is he doing here to begin with? But Yusuf doubles down and says that his job is to maintain the machinations of the ship, and that's what he intends to do. While all of this is happening, another crew member comes in vomiting blood, and completely distracted by the argument, Ruben doesn't realize that Chambers has scratched his eyes out, yelling that it won't go away and that he doesn't want to see it anymore. This signals the complete psychological breakdown of the crew and the beginning of the ship's true descent into chaos. Chambers' violent self-mutilation illustrates how whatever they are seeing is more than hallucination. It's invasive, personal, and unbearable. The fact that Ruben and Yusuf react with confusion rather than coordination highlights how their sense of order is already breaking. The vomiting crew member only reinforces that something is affecting them physically as well as mentally, suggesting the ship's influence is systemic, not isolated. Over in the gravity chamber, Yusuf tells Captain Kilpack over the comms that none of this makes sense. He explains that he presumed the ship and gravity drive had blown, overridden in some way, but she didn't just turn off. He's now hearing something, like an organic hum that indicates the ship is breathing, as though it were now sleeping. Yusuf's profession is rooted in logic and control. Machines follow rules. They can be repaired. But when he hears the ship breathe, the event horizon ceases to be a vessel and becomes something alive, unknowable. This moment is deeply unsettling because it erases the boundary between human and machine, turning what should be the safest, most predictable part of the ship into a source of horror. In the mess hall, Jennifer is looking for Nia and Devlin, only to find members of her crew either hiding under tables in the toilet screaming that they've seen too much or having sex in the changing rooms. This underscores how the crew's coping mechanisms splinter in different ways. Some hide, some scream, some indulge in primal instincts to feel something other than fear. And that's when she spots a trail of blood leading into the hallway. Yusuf is also starting to freak out further, claiming that he hears screaming. Kilpack tells him to focus on what's happening with the gravity drive, but when he removes one of the side panels, he sees a fleshy abomination with eyes screaming at him, forcing him to admit that engineering follows rules. A machine isn't emotional, and when everything goes to shit like it used to when he was a child, he would fix things to distract himself from the chaos. But this is something he cannot fix. The presence of the fleshy, screaming abomination inside the ship's core makes it clear. The event horizon hasn't just taken them somewhere, it has already begun reshaping itself into something nightmarish. And crucially, Captain Kilpack's admission that he too has seen things confirms that no one aboard is immune. The ship is inside all of their heads. The gravity drive then wakes up and activates, grabbing Yusuf's attention, who turns around and tells Kilpack that something is coming. A demon comes forth and says that it's good that Yusuf was already on his knees and didn't run away, as it would have been pointless. While Yusuf exclaims that he was supposed to be fixing the gravity drive, the demon informs him that it works perfectly, which is why it was here. It then brandishes a screwdriver and hands it over to him. When Yusuf asks who it is, it reveals that it has many names, but someone on this ship calls it Paimon. The gravity drive, originally presented as a scientific marvel, awakens not with the clean hum of technology, but with the inevitability of a summoning, heralding something ancient and predatory. Yusuf's encounter with Paimon is particularly striking because it isn't an ambiguous hallucination. The entity manifests with agency, mocking him, recognizing his vulnerability, and then exploiting it. Paimon tells him that it is the king of their hell, before ordering him to plunge the tool into his broken brain and worship him, and Yusuf obliges as though he has no control in the matter. Yusuf's lifelong pursuit in engineering, machines that obey logic, collapses as the engine becomes an altar. His mechanical skill, once his shield, becomes meaningless against something supernatural. It's also telling that Paimon gives him a tool that he would use to fix machines to effectively break himself beyond repair. As we head over to Jennifer, she finds Devlin sitting beside the body of Niyat, claiming that it was an accident. This is where he says that he didn't mean to kill him. Confused that he isn't talking about Niyat, she asks what he means by him, as a voice off panel says that Devlin meant me. When she turns around, we see the boy that Devlin ran over weeks ago, standing with a deceased Niyat, warning that he doesn't think they are the last people he's going to kill. Jennifer and Devlin's confrontation reveals the psychological warfare at play. Devlin isn't just haunted by guilt. His victim is physically present, merging the real and the infernal into one suffocating nightmare. This is the moment where personal sin and cosmic damnation converge. The ship isn't merely in hell, it is hell, feeding on guilt, fear, and trauma, bending reality to make the crew enact their own undoing. And that is the end of this part. Things have gone to hell figuratively and literally, with a crew of the Event Horizon besieged by physical and metaphorical demons tearing into their psyche, getting them to commit horrific acts. The closing images leaves no doubt. The crew of the Event Horizon are no longer explorers. They are prisoners in a realm that knows their secrets and intends to use them as instruments of their own destruction. So far, so good. I have a few issues, like how Niyat received a communication from Earth about Devlin, and that information wasn't passed through Anderson or the space station, but I'm willing to overlook that. The other thing is that what made the events aboard the Event Horizon in the film terrifying and cosmic horror was the unknowable nature of what was happening. Dr. Weir was a conduit for the ship's evil, but actually showing a demon called Paimon undercuts it. Perhaps the final part will address this and hopefully fix it, but we'll just have to wait and see.